Vrindavana-vilasini, Jaya Giranadari, Jaya Giranadari, Jaya Shishodanandana, Jaya Prajajanaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Prajajanaranjana, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, 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 Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radhika Raman Radhika Krishna Vanamali Giriju Ki Jai Ho. Om Agana Timarandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Mahavandhanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tavashe Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'd like to offer my heartfelt Puspanjali to the lotus feet of my Harinam Diksha Guru, our Śrīla Prabhupada, Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Second of all, to my Bhajan Shiksha Guru, Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, our Gurudev, and to Śrīla Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. And today it's a very special day. It's the tirobhava festival of Śrīla Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj. So I offer my heartfelt Puspanjali to his lotus feet, and to our entire Guru Parampara, and especially to Śrīla Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and the Madhurya kadambini. So, today I wanted to say a few words about Śrīla Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj. I don't know so much, but I need to purify myself by speaking the glories of the Vaishnavas. And I'll just read a little bit, because I can't remember dates so much. But Śrīla Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj appeared on the 5th day of the waning moon in the month of Magh in 1913 in the village of Fulta, which is 15 kilometers from Brahmapur in the Ganjam district of Odisha. So in Oriya, he appeared there. He was the fourth son of Srimati Devi and Sri Damodar, who named him Nishringa. So, very special birth there in Orissa. And he received his education there in Orissa. And he was encouraged by his elder brother to join the college there. And he's said to have a very noble, truthful character, and he was not envious. This was very noted in his younger years. He was not envious. And he became part of Mahatma Gandhi's Freedom Fighters Association. Gradually, he became interested in Ayurveda, and he became accomplished in Ayurveda. He received initiation from Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on August 3rd, 1936. On Balaram's appearance day in Sridham, Mayapur. That's interesting. I also received Harinam from Prabhupada in 1972 on Balaram's appearance day. I don't remember, it was something like the 26th or 25th of August in 1972.
I was there.
Yeah, you were. So he was initiated on Sri Balaram's appearance day. Wow. And after that, he opened a charitable hospital, and he became known as Sri Nisringa Kaviraj. So there we go. But he was really well versed in the Vaishnava scriptures. He was very scholarly, and he was very deep in his understanding of the Vaishnava literatures. And he used to preach a lot. So some of his god brothers, they advised him to live in the mat. So I guess at that time, it doesn't say here, he joined the mat. I'm not quite sure when he joined the mat. But in 1937, when his Gurudev entered Śrīla, he was there for that ceremony. And that year, he accepted the responsibility, in Kovuru, Andhra Pradesh, Sri Rai Ramananda Gaudiya Mat. He accepted the responsibility for taking care of this mat there. And so he was managing that mat. At the same time, he was managing the mat in Madras. So he managed quite a few mats, apparently, like this. And he had a lot of deep, deep respect and reverence for Sri Rai Ramananda Prabhu, of course. So he opened a mat. He reconstructed the mat there, the temple. Reconstructed it. And he built a house for the sadhus and a big hall for honoring prasadam. So, and he held a big festival there and invited all the Gaudiya Mat devotees to celebrate that. But he was very careful, even though he was being honored like this, he didn't want any Vaishnava aparads. So he was very, very careful always in seeing that everyone had everything they needed like this. He didn't want Vaishnava aparads, so he tried to serve all the Vaishnavas in such a way that they would be happy. And this is hundreds of Vaishnavas. And I know Srila Bhakti Vigyambharati Goswami Maharaj said that there was one mat, maybe it says what do you call it? It was probably this one here, Kovuru. I think it's near a train track. And so Srila Bharati Maharaj would say that every time they would come through this place, and the train stopped there, Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj with his devotees would come with prasadam. And we'd make sure they all had prasadam like this. And sometimes he would even insist that they go to the mat like this. He was so always wanting to serve the devotees and give prasadam like this. And he remembers especially every time, every year, he would meet the train and serve the devotees like this. That was his speciality. And on this line, I'll tell a story of myself, because I also met him here in Vrindavan. He was still with us when I came to Vrindavan in 1989. And it was in the early 90s. I don't remember which year. Could have been 91, 92, 93. I was still living in ISKCON Vrindavan. And early in the morning, three of my friends, disciples of Srila Narayana Maharaj, we decided to go early in the morning to Nidhaban. And so we went to Nidhaban, and we were, of course, rolling in the dust and praying. And so then we decided to go to the Rupa Sanatana Gaudiya Mat because we knew Srila Narayana Maharaj was there. We thought, well, maybe we'll get an early morning darshan. Maybe like 6 in the morning. So we went to the mat, and Srila Narayana Maharaj was just coming out of his room with a few Indians, maybe from Delhi, from somewhere, and he was going to take them on a little parikrama. So we went to Sevakunj, we went to Radha Damodar, we went to probably Sringarvat, and on the way back to the mat, we stopped in Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj's mat. I think it's, what's it, Vrindavan Chandra, yes, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, right across from Sevakunj. And Srila Puri Maharaj was there himself. And so they greeted each other, and they were laughing and joking. They had a very sweet, even though Puri Maharaj was much older, still they had a very sweet relationship. Sometimes Puri Maharaj could chastise him, but uncles can do that, you know. Anyhow, they were laughing and joking. And then finally, Gurudev says, well, Puri Maharaj is inviting you to stay for breakfast. So you stay here. And then Śrīla Narayana, she went back with his servant to Rupa Sanatana Gaudiya Math and left us there. So we were taking prasadam. And of course, he's from South India, so it was South Indian. It was idlis and I forget what else. But I don't even know if I'd ever had idlis before. You know, I don't know. I probably not. And so me, being a real sense enjoyer, I was, I kept saying out loud, oh, this prasadam is so good. Oh, it's so good. And Srila Puri Maharaj walks over to me very gravely and looks at me straight in the eyes and goes, all Mahaprasadam is very good. It was like, yes, 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 okay, wake up, let's be transcendental. I never forget that. He was remind us of the absolute truth, not to be enjoyers of prasadam, but to serve prasadam. Yes, this is one of his specialities, I hear. I didn't spend so much time with him, but I did have that wonderful little exchange with him. I never forget that, you know, when I'm taking prasadam. So, and I know, let's see here, does it say? And then he took charge of their Mayapur Math from 1942 to 1948, and he would visit Srimad Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. He was there in Mayapur. So I heard it was about 10 years that he would go. I don't know if it's every day or how often, but he would often go to see Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj and get his association. And Vamsidas Maharaj is a Maha Bhagavat, as we know, a completely liberated soul. So he took his association.
Like him how to do it.
Yeah, yeah. He was, as Śrīla Narayana, he was always wandering on the plane above, you know, of this above. He was just wandering on this. There's so many extraordinary stories about him. So, oh, and here it says that he was given by his godbrothers the title Bhagavat Acharya because he was so, had such great knowledge of the Bhagavatam. And he could answer all the questions very nicely. So they gave him the title Bhagavat Acharya. Here it says that he was especially had a lot of appreciation and love for his godbrother Bhakti Rakshak Śrīla Goswami Maharaj. And here it says he lived at his mat for some time. I'm not sure. I don't know. That's what's said here. And in 1966, Puri Maharaj accepted sannyas in Mayapur from Srila Bhakti Sarvasvas Giri Goswami Maharaj, one of his godbrothers, and that's when he became known as Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj. And it was at that time, after that, that he formed his mission, the Sri Krishna Chaitanya mission, at that time, 1966. And this I know, it says here, he had a very intimate relationship with our Srila Prabhupada. And in 1971, I hadn't even joined yet. I was still a hippie in the material world. He invited Prabhupada to the inauguration of their temple in Rajamundry there. And then later he hosted Prabhupada and 15 of Prabhupada's disciples at his Vishakhapatnam temple for about 20 days, and they had discussions on Krishna Katha. So those early devotees of Prabhupada, they got so much mercy. And so Prabhupada then invited him, Srila Puri Maharaj, to Mayapur to help in the foundation of the Chaitanya Chandrodaya ISKCON Mandir. And I know when there was difficulties between the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON, especially after Prabhupada left, and of course his disciples, we always called Prabhupada Prabhupada. That was our emotional, our heartfelt address. We couldn't call him Swami Maharaj except for those who had known him in the very beginning, because we didn't know Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't want to be called Swami Maharaj after a while. He felt that was like there were too many Swamis in America. And that put him on this level with all these Swamis who are completely bogus. So he was asked, and so he accepted the name Prabhupada, that's how we knew him. And that's how our deep feeling was, our attachment, Prabhupada. Because if we said something else, there's not the same feeling. But of course, we were being criticized by the Gaudiya Math for using this name. And of course, Prabhupada also got criticized for using this name. And but it was Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj who supported Prabhupada. He was one of the very few godbrothers who did not criticize Prabhupada for using the name Prabhupada. He encouraged all of us. He said, you must use this name. This is a name you know him by. This is a name he accepted. He was very, very encouraging and supporting to us. And that was helpful for us, very helpful. We felt like he was a very kind uncle. Because I was here in Vrindavan and he was here in Vrindavan much of the time. And at that time it was a little difficult. We were kind of being attacked on many sides, like this. So there's a special relationship there with Prabhupada that goes deep. It's a very deep, deep thing. Prabhupada very much appreciated this, very much. He also had a very close relationship with Bhakti Jivan Janardhan Goswami Maharaj. And when his senior disciples, later on, he had given Diksha to many of his senior, but his Diksha disciples, they took their sannyas from Bhakti Jivan Janardhan Goswami Maharaj, many of his disciples. I think even the acharyas now. Bhakti Kamal Govinda Maharaj, he took his sannyas, who was a disciple of Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj, took sannyas from Bhakti Jivan Janardhan Goswami Maharaj, the disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta, like that. So he had a very loving exchange and a relationship with many of his godbrothers, like this. Let's see here. And, oh, yes, and from 1997 to 2005, so that is 8 years. Not long, but in 8 years, in his old age, what did he do? He traveled all over the world, following in the footsteps of his dear godbrother Śrīla Prabhupada to inspire the devotees. I mean, that's amazing. Not many in that age. I would have to calculate. How old would he have been? 1990. Well, he was born in what? He was born in 1913. 1913. So what's? How many?
When he was 90, I didn't calculate.
No, 1913, and he went in 1997.
1997.
What's 13 from 97?
That's 93, 84.
84. At 84 years, he started traveling.
Wow.
And he went to mostly Europe, all over Europe. I know he went to Spain, Italy. I'm not sure where else he went, but particularly Spain and Italy, and he inspired. Well, yeah, he went to America, he went to Mexico, and he even went to Australia. Amazing. Amazing. So he was giving shelter to so many fallen conditioned souls out there in his older age. And he was so inspiring to so many devotees. I've met so many of his disciples. You know, he just picked them up, just like Prabhupada did, out of the gutter, you know.
He went in Europe also, like Austria.
Okay, Austria. Oh yeah, he has a
Slovenia.
temple. He has a temple in Austria.
Vienna.
Yeah.
Yeah, big temple in Vienna, very beautiful.
Yeah, and one of my god sisters is there. So he
Yeah.
inspired many,
Really?
many of Prabhupada's disciples also. You know, he was giving inspiration to those new devotees and to those who had lost inspiration.
Was he the one that had the kirtan at the World Trade Center right before?
Just, I have to think here. Sorry. And so he was. Let's see. What was I going to say? So he mainly, his deep emphasis was on Sri Nam. Sri Nam. To take shelter of Sri Nam and Sri Guru and surrender. Surrender to Sri Guru and Sri Nam, and everything will come from this, which is true. He would talk some about Vrindavan or not at Mayapur, but it was Sri Nam. Chant Sri Nam, take shelter of Sri Nam under the guidance of proper Guru and proper Vaishnavas, and serve. Just serve. It was very simple. But so many devotees, so many of my friends who had lost hope, because in ISKCON there had been some difficulties with some of our gurus, and they had been hurt because their gurus had had some problems. So he gave them so much more hope and inspiration, and they went on in their spiritual life very happily. They're still going on in their life very happily, like this. So we're very, very grateful to his inspiration. He was simple like that. And his emphasis, I heard him speak a little bit of Harikatha, not a lot. He came to the Keshevji Gaudiya Math a few times. He came here to Gopinath Bhavan. He did come to ISKCON, I think for Prabhupada's disappearance days, like that. But I remember his emphasis was Gaur Leela. He was very much into Gaur Leela. And what it says here is that the last words that he said in any public class were Kirtaniya Sada Hari. Those were his last public words. Take shelter of Kirtan. And he left this world March 3rd, 2009, after the evening artik in his Vishakhapatnam temple. Then his body was placed, his transcendental body was placed in samadhi in Jagannath Puri. And now they're having a huge festival there today. Today they're having a huge, and there's a beautiful murti of him there. They've made out of, I guess it's brass. It looks golden. I guess it's brass. It's beautiful, beautiful, huge murti, life-size murti. I was in Mayapur and Navadvip in 2009. I remember when we heard the news. It was quite shocking to us. Right before Navadvip Dham Parikrama, and it was like, oh, another one of the Vaishnavas, another one of the old vintages going, you know, disciple.
Gaur Leela.
Yeah, in Gaur Leela, yeah. Let's see. So, forgive me if I've said anything wrong, because I don't know so much of the history. I'm just taking this like this. Does anyone, would you like to say anything? Or? Okay.
Well, he came to
Here,
our,
why don't we try?
he came to our store in Eugene, Oregon.
Oh, he did?
Yes, and
What year?
I don't remember. It was right before the World Trade Center was destroyed.
Oh, what year?
And he'd been to so many famous places, and he actually did he went right before the Trade Center, and he did a kirtan. That's why you were saying he emphasized kirtan. So right before it was destroyed, he did a kirtan there. And he came to Eugene, which is a very small town in Oregon on the west coast of the U.S., America. And we didn't really know anything about him, but the store was like a preaching center, and we'd had Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha there, and Bhakti Sundar, Dev, Govinda, and disciples of Śrīla Narayan Maharaj. And so he came, and we were playing a video of our Śrīla Prabhupada speaking, and the car drove up, so we turned off the video. So he didn't see the video or hear anything. And he came in, and he was 90 years old.
Wow.
and he looked so frail and little, and like we went, he sat on the seat, the Vyasasan for him, and the sound system didn't work. And we thought, oh no, we have this small person who's very old and frail, no one will be able to hear anything he says. So he opened his mouth and the whole room filled with his voice. And he began speaking exactly where Srila Prabhupada had left off on the video.
Whoa.
And he told everything. He told about Sita Ram, all the incarnations, the entire philosophy, up to Lord Chaitanya, why he, you know, the 3 hidden reasons and the 3, and all in like 45 minutes. And then he told a story where Hanuman, at the coronation of Sita Ram, everyone was given a pearl necklace, and Hanuman was biting the pearls and spitting them out. And Sita goes, "What is this? You're not Varotama, you're just a silly monkey. You're not the king of the highest of the forest. You're just a silly monkey. Why are you biting these pearls in half?" And he goes, "Well, I'm trying to see if Sita Ram are inside the pearls, and they're not, so they're useless." And then she said, "Yes, you were Vanarotama." And then after he spoke, we had a kirtan and a prasadam, and then he left to go get in his car, and my 1.5-year-old grandson, who is named Nandi, he followed him, and when Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri got in the car in the back seat, the toddler crawled in and sat cross-legged at his feet and would not leave. He wanted to go with him. So later on, every time I saw Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj, one time he was in Jagannath Puri and he was lying down, and everyone was being very quiet, and we came in and they were fanning him, and you know, he was practically looked like he was in samadhi, you know, and everyone was going around and looking at him and paying obeisances, and I came up and he saw me and he jumps up and he goes, "Eugene."
So he was 90-something years old. He remembered.
Right, and then another time he was walking up the steps in the temple here in Vrindavan after a lecture.
You mean his temple?
Uh-huh. It was his temple, but it was not what they have now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he saw me, and he turned around and continued walking as he said, "Eugene." And he almost knocked his head against the wall, but someone stopped him. And he always remembered me. And then in 2006, for Navadvip Parikram, so he
I'm sorry.
yeah, I forgot what I was. Oh, so my husband and I had gotten legally married as per requested by Srila Narayan Maharaj, and we came to Navadvip, for the parikram, and he said, "Your punishment for getting married is you have to provide a feast at Nrsimhapali for 20,000 people of puris, sweet rice, and khichdi, and a drink."
Narayan Maharaj said that.
Yes. So we did, and we actually were serving prasadam, and we finished serving prasadam. There wasn't one grain of rice or anything left. So we had no prasadam. and we're walking back to Koladweep from Nishringapali. We're leaving, and we walk past Śrīla Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaja's ashram, and they come in, and they were doing a Guru Puja to him. So they had us, my husband and I, together. I don't remember how it worked. They had us do the offering, and then afterwards he blessed us, and then of course he said Eugene. And he blessed us, and then we were given his Mahaprasadam.
Wow. Isn't that
And that's the last time I ever saw him.
the speciality is giving prasadam to
Yes.
Besides Alpatar. What a memory. What a memory of to be able to definitely transcendental personality. Oh, wow. Thank you, Mother. That was beautiful. Anything else? No. Okay. So, we have a few minutes left here. So, Jai, we'll offer our heartfelt Puspanjali to the lotus feet of Śrīla Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj. Jai Ho, Jai Ho. We're so very fortunate to have had his darshan and to hear some of his Harikatha. And hopefully he will bless us today so that we will attain shelter at the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani eventually, the lotus feet of our Guru Varg, Śrīla Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das, and Śrīla Prabhupada, Śrīla Gurudev, and all their lotus feet. Okay. So moving on here in Madhurya Kadambini, we're now coming, we're in the 10 offenses to the holy name in the third shower, right? And we have finished the offense, the first offense, which is to criticize and blaspheme the devotees for preaching the name. And this is the most heinous offense, the hardest offense to eradicate, which is not eradicated until we actually finally have prem and finally get darshan of Krishna. So this is, we should watch out. We have to watch out to offenses to the holy name, especially criticizing devotees. And the second one was to think that Krishna and anything about him, his name, his qualities, his dham, is different from him. That there's some kind of duality there. There's nothing. Krishna and his name, his form, his qualities, his dham.
Maharaji, you just said that this offense is eradicated only at the level of brain.
Yes.
So that means, then how do we, if it's going to be there, you said still you have to be careful, and yet it's going to persist.
Well, meaning we don't want to commit any more.
Yeah.
We want to take this name seriously. And also we talked about how if we commit Vaishnava Aparodh, and the third offense, which we'll talk a little bit about today, if we have time, is to disregard Sri Guru, is to offend Sri Guru. So number 1 and number 3 are very related. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says it's pretty much the same. The only way that one can become free from this is to, if the person is still on the planet, to go to that person sincerely, not insincerely, but sincerely, deeply repenting with a burning heart full of remorse and regretfulness, and fall at their feet and beg forgiveness and serve that devotee and take shelter of Harinam continuously. And if that devotee is not pleased, completely keep serving, keep praying, and eventually that devotee will forgive. Like this, and if the devotee has already left the planet, we can go to their samadhi, or we can go into our heart and meditate on them and keep begging for forgiveness, keep serving them, and keep chanting Harinam. But still, with that, if later we'll see that the way the anarthas are eradicated, the anartha of offenses is the last one to be eradicated. The other ones are, I forgot, but they're like at the level of ruchi and ashakti, these levels. Most of them are gone. The ones coming from pious activities, the ones coming from impious activities, the one coming from like seva aparadhs and neglect like that. But the ones coming from aparadh, not until prem, not until we actually have darshan. And it's not that, it's because in bhav, there's not much. It's just like a whiff of fragrance, but still there's a little bit of fragrance there. It's not until...
You mean bad smell?
Yeah. Something is there, you see? And you see we have the Leela, it's just a Leela, because how could Maharaj Pariksit ever commit an offense? But Maharaj Pariksit, a parikar, he has to play the Leela of offending a sage, right? He goes to this hermitage, the sage is in deep meditation, doesn't see him. Maharaj Pariksit is thirsty, he wants some water, asks him for it, he doesn't hear. So Maharaj Pariksit becomes angry, puts a dead snake around the neck of the sage. This, the sage is not aware, but the son of that sage, and they're Brahmins, curses Maharaj Pariksit when he hears about it. And Maharaj Pariksit accepts the curse. He didn't have to. And he actually feels deep repentance. How could I do this? How could I possibly done this? How could I do this? And he goes, as we know, to the bank of the Ganga. Here's the Srimad. This is Leela, so Bhagavatam will come and just show that you don't offend. We don't, and so he constantly heard Harikatha from Sukadev Goswami. He was repenting, remorseful, and he took shelter of Harinam in the form of Harikatha, and he went back home. Of course, he's a parika. It's a Leela, but it's to show. We have to be careful at every step. Every step. We should never be overconfident that, I'm above committing some kind of offense. You see? Never. We have to be so careful. We know in the 5th canto we have Maharaj Rahugana and Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat, and also we have to be careful we don't offend any living entity, even an ant. That's the teachings of Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugana. Jad Bharat had been Maharaj Bharat, the son of Rishabdev, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then he takes to Avadut. And Bharat, his oldest son, becomes the king. He rules for 10,000 years, perfectly. But then he also renounces everything, goes to the forest, and reaches Bhav. But as Leela, he becomes attached to a deer, baby deer, and he has to take the birth as a deer to show that we have to be so careful. So careful. And he wasn't really following properly. I mean, his father is Rishabdev, but somehow or other, some uncontrolled desire there, and he didn't follow, and maybe he didn't have the Vaishnava association at that time, to remind him. If we aren't in sadhu sangha, if he'd been with great sadhus, they would have said, wait a minute, don't become so attached to that deer. Don't give up your practices. But he was by himself. But as a deer, he remembered his past mistakes, and he regretted and lamented. And when he became Jad Bharat, he didn't even make material connections with his mother or her father, anyone. He appeared as dull and dumb and just wandering. He was very healthy, though. He did not want to make the same mistake again. And as you know, he was so detached and absorbed, because he attained such a high spiritual level. He was absorbed in his spiritual meditation, in all of his spiritual practices. And so he was not aware of the material world. So the dacoits, they caught him when they needed an offering for goddess Kali, Durga. He didn't complain. He didn't say anything. He was ready to, they had the big sword. They were going to just cut his head. I just said, no, if this is what the sweet will of my Lord is. He had no resistance because he had no material attachment. Of course, Kali herself could not tolerate this. So she bursts out and cut off the head of all the dacoits, right? Nothing happened to him. Right. Could we do that? Are we that detached? So to remember this is very helpful. I'm obviously quite attached. And so then later, these King Rahugana of the Soravir province, he's going, I forget where, somewhere in the mountains, and he has a palanquin. He's on a palanquin. And one of his palanquin carriers gets sick or something, and they're looking for someone to carry the palanquin. And they find Jad Bharat, and he's very healthy. They say, okay, he doesn't complain. So he's carrying the palanquin of the king. But he does not want to offend any living entity, so he's looking for the ants on the ground. So he's carrying the palanquin because he doesn't want to step on the ants, so he's keeping up to step with the other palanquin carriers. So the king becomes a bit agitated. And in not such a nice way, he starts criticizing and chastising the palanquin carriers. And they finally say, well, it's this new carrier. He's the one that isn't doing it properly. So the king chastises him. He doesn't say anything. So then they continue on. And it keeps happening, this, uneven palanquin. So finally the king really insults Jad Bharat. I can't remember the exact words. And Jad Bharat finally at that time decides to have some mercy and compassion on King Rahugana. It's his own sweet will. He didn't have to, but because he decided to give mercy, because the Mahabhagavats, they can give mercy at any time when they want. So he started speaking the absolute truth to Maharaja Rahugana in a very, I don't know the right word. It's not straight, like in when you're saying the opposite of what you mean. I don't know how to.
Cryptid way.
Is it cryptic?
No, well, that's cryptic. It's hidden. What's your
Yeah, hidden. That's the word. In a very hidden way. But Maharaj Rahugana, he gets the point. And actually, he actually did have some kind of desire for spiritual advancement and spiritual inquisitiveness, and he had some association with sages. But he was a big king, and he was absorbed in his king identity in a material sense. And he was not properly, you might say, treating his citizens, because if you are a proper king, you won't talk that way even to your palanquin carriers. You just don't treat them like that. It's not appropriate. So Jad Bharat was calling him out on this. And when he heard, he jumped off the palanquin, fell at the feet of Jad Bharat, put his head on his feet and said, "Oh, who are you? Who are you?" And then there's about 4 chapters of Jad Bharat revealing the absolute truth to King Rahugana, like this, you see. So fortunate. Who we might be talking to that we think is just some dumb fool that we meet on the street. We have to be very careful. We don't, what to speak of, even if they aren't on the level of Jad Bharat, they are a pure spirit soul. They're just covered. Super soul is there residing with the spirit soul. We're not supposed to offend any living entity. Any living entity. And in this talks with Maharaj Rahugana and Jad Bharat, the very, very famous verse is, Jad Bharat explains to Maharaj Rahugana, only by taking bath in the foot dust of the pure devotees can you know the absolute truth. No other way. Abhishek. Take Abhishek in the foot dust of the pure devotees. Not by studying, not by renunciation, not by celibacy. No way. You can't. Only by taking shelter. Abhishek in their foot dust, which means in their moods and their conceptions. This is the only way to know the absolute truth. And the pure devotees are not going to bestow their mercy so easily. We have to be very careful. Very careful. Of course, sometimes they do. Sometimes they're causelessly merciful, like with Nitai and Jagai and Madai. Like this. So back to, where were we? Back to the third. Wait, you asked a question. Did I answer your question? What was the question? I don't remember now.
No, the question was that you were saying that offenses towards
Oh,
devotees.
right.
So I was just, what I understood was that tendency to offend devotees might be there even up to prem.
Well, so, I think it's more
Or
like
is it the effect of the offense?
it's the effect of the
Yeah,
offense.
okay.
That's what it is. That's what, yes, the effect of the offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Because I just read that if you have any impurity in your heart, you can't get praying.
right.
So now I understand. You were just, so it's not, the offense isn't in the person's heart, but the effect of
It's the effect of the offense. Yeah, yeah. I should have said that more clearly. That's what that is. It's the effect is just not completely gone, whereas the effect of the offense is coming from pious and impious and all these. They're easily gone, but not just criticizing, but actually all the operads, all operads. But the most serious one is criticizing, and then this third one, which is to disregard and disrespect the bona fide guru, is a great offense. Great offense. And this is something sometimes is quite subtle for some persons. They'll think, oh yes, my guru, he knows everything spiritual, but he doesn't know the material. He doesn't really know how I'm feeling, what I'm going through. Like, this is an offense. The guru knows everything. Satguru knows he can look at our face, and he knows even what we're thinking, what to speak of. He knows all our past, all our future. He knows everything, and he knows exactly who we are, what our spiritual identity is. He can see that impression in our heart. You know, that seed, the banyan tree. The whole banyan tree is in the seed of a banyan. You know, banyan seed. So he can see in our soul who we are. He can see everything like this, and he can give us praying like this. So we have to be so careful. And also there's another tendency. We'll think, the Nam Guru, he only knows Nam Tattva. He doesn't know so much about everything else. And these big scholars, they know, they've studied all this literatures and like this, and they know more about all the, the higher philosophy. This is a great offense, because there's no higher truth than Nam Tattva. And Nam Tattva includes every other Tattva, actually, like this. So there's so many different aspects of this third offense. Also, if we take the guru to be kind of like a mundane mortal like ourselves, then we're going to disregard his instructions. And if we disregard the instructions of Sri Guru, that's an offense. And that's why sometimes Guru, being so kind and merciful, he gives that instruction in such a way, he'll say, it would be nice if you will do this, or please do, because he knows that we probably won't be able to do it so well, and he doesn't want it to be an offense. He's very kind like this. But we should always be wanting and praying, like for myself, Srila Prabhupada, please help me, please somehow make me eligible, make me qualified to be actually serve you, and please you in all ways with my words, my activities, my thoughts, my moods. I know, please clear all these contaminations, all my conditioning, so I actually will be able to serve you like this. That's really what the answer is, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And the spiritual master, the Sri Guru, is descending from the spiritual world. We should never think, even though they look like us, they do not have a material body. It's an offense to think they have a material body. But does that mean that when they're having their sickness pastimes, we think, like in the case of Madhavendra Puri, and we have Ishwar Puri and Ramachandra Puri. His disciple Ramachandra Puri is like, oh, why are you crying? You should be thinking of Brahman and you should be happy and like this. But Madhavendra Puri was in deep spiritual separation from Krishna and Radharani and like this. So he was crying and praying. Ishwar Puri knew this, and he was serving him and helping him. And he was cleaning his stool and his urine. So even though he was doing that, it wasn't that he's thinking Madhavendra Puri has a material body. No. This is a chance for the disciple to be able to engage in some service. So the spiritual master gives us a chance to serve when he has his sickness pastimes, isn't it? Gives us a chance to do service. But they're transcendentally situated like this. This is a great test when the Sri Guru with a transcendental body exhibits these kind of leelas. We have to be very careful. We have to serve them in the appropriate way. If they're sick, then we have to take care of that. But we don't think that they have a material body. It's a very, 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 very intimate connection with Sri Guru at this time, like that. And we should never think that Sri Guru dies. Sri Guru is always with us. Always, always, always with us. Like that. He passes into Nitya Leela, but he's right here with us. He is not a material person. So therefore we shouldn't think, okay, now he's gone and he won't see what I'm doing, so it's okay if I do this and that, even though I know he won't like it. What kind of mentality is that? Or the other mentality is, oh, he's gone, so I have no spiritual strength, so, I can't help it. I can't, I just have to do these things that I know he won't like, but he's gone, I'm not getting, and it's some kind of excuse. No, Guru is not gone. He is right here. Even more so in one sense. He's giving us a chance to serve in all ways. Even when Sri Guru is before us, having his human-like pastimes, before he enters Nitya Leela, we didn't stay with Guru all the time. We weren't sitting in his lap 24 hours a day. Like sometimes when Srila Prabhupada is here, I'm in Los Angeles, he's all over the world. But still feeling so much connection to Prabhupada, serving Srila Prabhupada. And then he would come to Los Angeles. That was so inspiring. But really, service goes on, whether he's appearing before us or not appearing before us, either in his external Leela or when he's in Nitya Leela. We have to understand this. Sri Guru never leaves us, ever. And then one day when we're qualified, we'll be with them there with Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. And we'll once again get to see them with our spiritual eyes that are qualified to see them who they were even at that time, right? When we weren't qualified. They mercifully appeared before us in this form so that we could serve them. Like that. So we have to be very careful with this disregarding Sri Guru, not understanding who he is. Okay. I think we'll stop here. Any other questions or anything? Okay. Oh, sorry. Really untogether today.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga ki jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Gosvami Maharaja ki
Jai.
Prabhupada Śrīla Gurudev ki
Jai.
Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Bol.